Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. Momentarily, I will be joined by Steve Smith for a discussion on professional congruency. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Steve, welcome to the show.
Bruce, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
As am I. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Okay. I am a business and executive coach. My company is GrowthSource Coaching, based here in Southern California, Orange County. On the backs of a 30-year career in consumer products manufacturing, I was introduced to this industry, didn't really know much about it, but realized very quickly I was a great fit for it. And so through a lot of trials and tribulations, 16 years later, I'm having a great time and serving a lot of clients.
That's great. Now, I said our title was Professional Congruency, but I had to shorten it. And what you originally wrote was Professional Congruency, when you project on the what you project on the outside is what you believe on the inside.
Yes. All right. So the whole idea of congruency, and when you are congruent, especially in the professional field, it means everything that you know and believe about yourself internally is what resonates outwardly to others. And when the message is different, meaning what you think you are on the inside isn't what you're projecting on the outside, you become incongruent. And a lot of people can't really label that as such, but they feel it. And everybody has had this go on at one point in time. You meet somebody and you kind of think, there's something weird about this person. I can't put my finger on it, but I just feel something. And when that feeling pops up, that is your internal red flag that you're meeting someone who is projecting something other than themselves.
So it's a question of authenticity.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things that some people, and you weren't one of them, who come on this podcast don't complain about, but question. That's the wrong word to use, as you'll hear right away, is the fact that I don't provide or that I don't ask for questions and I don't provide questions. And I tell them that if I know the questions and I know the answers, it'll sound like a scripted play and not an authentic
a dress rehearsal.
And you need that authenticity.
Right.
Now, when somebody projects one thing, but does something different, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the talk.
Right.
What impact will that have on their employees?
The biggest thing that shows up quickly, and people don't tend to talk about it, but it's in their actions and their interactions, is trust kind of suffers. And it's not because they feel there's something diabolical taking place. It's just they have this feeling, I don't really know who this person is, so I don't really know if they care about me, if they have my back, if I follow them, will I get burnt? So trust is really the big thing that surfaces. And of course, out of that come other things like, when they tell me something, is it real? Is it something I should go to school on? Or should I ask for a second opinion? So all of these little rippling effects, like throwing a rock in a pond, tend to happen when you work for or work with someone who's exhibiting a lack of authenticity, or what I call a lack of congruency.
So the reverse, when you talk the talk and walk the talk, what impact does that have on the employees?
Well, that leads to another concept that I've been kind of slow boiling over the years I've been doing this. And it's what I call clout. When someone has professional clout, they don't have to wear it on their sleeve. They're not the big ego. They don't suck all the oxygen out of the room when they show up. But again, people feel a sense of confidence, a sense of openness, a willingness to engage and to help. And people are drawn to that. And that's what happens when you have really well-defined congruency. What people are feeling and seeing on the outside is exactly what's being resonated from the inside.
Now, people can be too honest.
Well, so I know this is not going to come as a surprise, but
Mhm.
probably in the last 10 years, maybe,
Mhm.
the word transparency has gotten to the point of almost being bastardized. Because, there's many people out there of all shapes and sizes that will profess of being completely and totally transparent.
Mhm.
And while I think you should be genuine and honest and forthcoming with what you do, not everything that goes on in your head needs to be spoken publicly. And people don't need to know every single ingredient of your life. It is a little bit of a need to know depending on the organization you're in and things like that. So you do want to be honest. You want people to know that you're genuine, that what you say is what you do. And if you are supportive of them, that they feel that. But transparency, yeah, it leaks into it a little bit, but that's one I think you can go a little too far in some cases.
I have two appointments after we finish with, I was going to say career counseling clients, but they're not. They may become, but they're professional writing clients,
Mm-hmm.
resumes specifically. One person has had one job. She's been there for 9 months. She doesn't have a resume. I mean, there's nothing on her LinkedIn page. It just says where she's been working, and she's been working there for 9 months. I will have to tell her that she needs to stay where she is and to create a history, a professional history that will be attractive to other employers.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, when I have done that, have been very offended. And they will say, yes, but I'm honest. I'm dependable. I'm trustworthy. All the things that people say and no one believes. It's difficult for some people to accept the truth. And if you project on the outside, you're doing a good job, and then a week later you fire the person, they don't know what's happening.
Right.
If you project on the outside, look, I like you. I know you're doing the best you can. There are problems. We need to discuss them. And we're going to set goals so that you'll be successful here. If not in your current position, perhaps we'll find something else for you. That is very rare. And I've never understood why. And since you deal with executives, maybe you can explain it to me.
Well, there's a couple of factors that just kind of come to mind as you're sharing that story. One, for many people, and it doesn't matter if they've been in their executive role or their management role for 6 months or a year or 10 years, there is very much a reluctance to serve up honest feedback if the person serving it up in any way, shape, or form feels there's going to be an emotional reaction that they don't want to deal with. So they will run the span from not saying anything until the event happens, or soft pedaling it to the point where the person seemingly just doesn't really get the message. So one of the issues is that. The other issue is that a lot of times people, and I see more and more of this today, people naturally don't want to be told anything. They especially don't want to get unsolicited advice. So how the individual who wants to provide that feedback serves it up is what opens the door to the other person's receptivity. So typically when I'm working with people in managerial or executive level roles that have teams that they have to work with, I tell them, instead of just kind of blowing in there and just giving it to them between the eyes, because some people are very direct and they value that, think about the person on the other side of the desk and just say, I have some observations I think are going to benefit you. Are you open to hearing them? So you're kind of asking for permission.
Mhm.
Once the person says, yeah, tell me, I need to know, they basically opened the virtual door for you to step through. Then you can give them the information and they understand the intent. The intent is, I want to help you, but these things need to be dealt with. As opposed to, I'm just going to hit you over the head with something I think you should have known all along, but now I have to tell you about it. So the whole communication realm, which I spend a lot of time coaching and training on, has to do with that old axiom. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. The
Mhm.
way you serve things up a lot of times transmits your intention. And if that transmittal isn't right, then the person hears the message on one side, but they're perceiving why it's being served up. And sometimes it just goes bad. And enough people have either known people who have had those problems or they've experienced themselves and they just walk away from it. And of course, then you find out what happens later on because somebody does get laid off or somebody gets fired or demoted and they didn't see it coming. They had no warning, no opportunity to change it. All of a sudden, it just showed up.
I was once put in charge of our largest division. I had over 100 employees. I had directors, and I had never done anything like that before. You learn decision making in university, or at least I did,
Mhm.
but the actual work I didn't know. And I started the conversation with everybody. I've never done this before. I want to know what you like, what you don't like. And I took notes. And it was fine. But then I started to get feedback of some of my staff going to board members. And then the board members came back and gave me the feedback. And I
Mhm.
said, I don't like that. I want them to be comfortable coming to me. So I called the staff meeting
Mhm.
and I said, I want to know how I am doing, what you like and what you don't like about me. There'll be no retaliation. You don't have to worry. You guys have known me long enough to know I don't lie.
Mhm.
I said, what's your problem with me? And the oldest by age, not by seniority,
Mhm.
a person in the room said, Bruce, you make decisions so fast, we don't think you're taking our advice into account. They all agreed. Now, I knew that wasn't true. I'm a very subjectively, I'm a good decision maker.
Mhm.
Objectively, I'm a quick decision maker. And I said, okay, thank you. And then there was no point in my saying you're wrong because they didn't want to hear that. I said, okay,
Yes.
now we're going to have I said, okay, you're all fired, but let's have the meeting anyway. So they laughed and everyone was calm. My sense of humor, they all knew it. They knew that there would be no retaliation.
Right.
Then I said, this is the issue that I have to deal with now, and I need your input. And they gave me their input, and I said, this is a decision. And I made it right then and there on the spot. And I said, Steve, I'm disagreeing with you because of this.
Mhm.
Mary, I'm agreeing with you because of this. And I went around the table and explained to each one of them why I had objected or
Mhm.
accepted what they had said.
Mhm.
They loved it.
Well, okay, so that to me goes to one critical aspect of any leader's role, which is you have to know your audience. It doesn't matter if you're a public figure, a comedian, anybody else that normally speaks to many. If you know your audience, then you can adjust your delivery style that they will either appreciate or acknowledge or respect or listen to, and you're good. If you don't know your audience, that very same thing that you just said, going around the table and kind of like, I like what you said, I don't like what you said, that kind of thing, you could have had a very different reaction. But in doing so and knowing your audience, it doesn't surprise me that you got the response that you did.
I was recently asked to participate in one of these LinkedIn articles.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen them,
Mhm.
and the question is, what happens when you're making a presentation and everything is derailed? You'll lose your audience. And I had a one-word answer and then an explanation. I said, humor. And then I said, go to YouTube, find Johnny Carson monologues, which did not go well, and see how he turned it around. Self-deprecating humor is the best.
And that is a very, very effective means of kind of quelling an uprising. If everybody's spending time there and the presentation seems like it's tanking. And the only thing I would say is that if you have that general level of inner confidence and people know that about you, that you have a certain demeanor about you where you maintain a little bit of humbleness, maybe that's self-deprecation, you can get away with that. Folks that are a little more in a junior role, that might be just getting used to presenting for the first time, or maybe haven't done it a lot, may have to rely on some different tactics to kind of break the ice and get everybody comfortable. But I do believe, like many of the things that people in leadership roles need to be keeping in their tool belt, is you have to have a strategy for everything you get involved in. You may go 6 months and not use it, but you have to have those little mini plan Bs when plan A takes a left turn off into the weeds someplace and you didn't anticipate it.
And humor can also get you into trouble. I had a few entry-level employees at that time, and we were cleaning out actually, I was doing it, clearing out the storage room because the big boss was a hoarder, and I knew he'd get upset, everything. Now, I knew the minute we moved files into real storage, somebody will call up and ask for one of those files, which is exactly what happened.
Right.
I mean, within an hour, but that's beside the point. I found boxes of carbon paper.
Oh,
This
wow.
was in the 1990s.
Right.
And I saw these two guys walking by. I said, would you mind doing me a favor? Go into the main office and ask the secretaries if they could use carbon paper. And they looked at me and said, Bruce, what's carbon paper?
Yeah.
To which I responded, you're fired.
Yeah.
They thought I was serious. I could say, I said, no, 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 I'm just kidding, guys. And I explained to them what carbon paper was. And they go, well, why would you use carbon paper? Why not just use the photocopier? So you got, like you said, you have to know your audience.
Right.
But sometimes you're the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a difficulty I used to have in explaining to executives who would contact me to write their end of year speech, state of the company address, if you will, to their employees. I would say, you're speaking to them, but more importantly, they're listening to you. So you are their audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is another area of self-awareness that few people that I've run in have had a natural ability to harness and really understand. Most people acquire it through training or feedback or other types of development programs that help them truly understand what that's all about. But when you have that real level of self-awareness, you can read a room very quickly and figure out, who you might need to spend a little extra time with, the general mood of things. It's amazing how well you can pick up on bodily nuances that will tell you what's on people's minds. But if you're in your head all the time about, how do I look, then it's going to be a train wreck.
Now, you're talking about the body language is very important. You wrote, I'm just looking at this, that you have to project genuine confidence.
Mm-hmm.
There are people, and I never realized this until I started researching. There are people who consider a one-on-one meeting to be public speaking. I never thought of a one-on-one meeting as public speaking. One person does not a public make.
Mm-hmm.
10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, that's public speaking. No, they are just as scared talking to one person as they are would be talking to 100, which they probably couldn't do.
Right. Right. And
You can't project confidence if you're scared. And as you know, public speaking is the number one fear of most.
yes,
So,
well, you're right. Public speaking is a big giant hurdle for a lot of people in leadership and roles of authority and stuff like that. Um, some of it is just basically due to practice.
mhm,
In fact, if I can tell you a quick 60
please.
story on this, a good friend of mine who owns a hotel management company and also is a professional speaker.
Mhm,
Um, he was invited by a fairly large association, a couple thousand people, to give a talk. And he went there, he got up on stage, he was introduced, and he's looking out there and he goes, this didn't happen a lot. He goes, but for some reason that day, that moment, he went blank.
mhm,
He couldn't remember what to say next.
mhm,
And the amount of time that went by probably wasn't that much in actuality, but seemingly to him was painful.
mhm.
Like, what the hell is going on? And all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, the script started to roll. It's like, oh, I know where I'm at. I'm on. Boom, boom. So he finishes it. Everybody's clapping.
Uh-huh.
He gets off the stage and he's so angry with himself for having that mental lapse and not coming on and really getting things going in a real robust way. He gets on the phone to his assistant back in the office and he goes, I want you to start calling everybody that you know that has a meeting or a conference or whatever. And I want you to book a talk that I will give one a day for the next 60 days. And so she did it. I mean, it was large and small and everything in between. And he said, I purposely put myself through that exercise so that I would never get up on a stage again and falter like that. And he told me, he said, one of the biggest reasons that whether it's projection in a small group or in a large group, he goes, you have to always practice. You can never walk away from the practice. And when you do that, at least you can walk up there and feel calm, feel comfortable, which puts the rest of the audience at ease. Now, what you talk about, that's all based on what they're coming there to hear. But I never forgot that story because I thought, oh my God, what would I do if I was invited to speak to a couple hundred people
Mhm,
and I stand up on there and after they give us this glowing introduction, I
mhm.
go blank. I would crawl away. I probably would never be seen from again.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He attacked it. He went crazy on public speaking until he got over it.
The first time I had to really give a speech was literally presenting my doctorate to my bibliography. I was in Spain. Everyone in that room, I knew their name. I was quoting everybody in that room. I was scared to death. And the person who introduced me was a under Secretary General of the United Nations. I think that's a title.
Mm-hmm.
And he referred to me as doctor. And when he was, I thanked him and I said, I just want to clarify something. Since you have said that I'm a doctor, does that mean I don't have to finish the dissertation? And he goes, no, you have to. Everybody laughed, and that
Yeah.
helped me to break the tension because I was shaking like a leaf.
And you know what? A certain amount, and I've also learned this as well, that a certain amount of anxiety, if you will, a little bit of stress, is not a bad thing because what it means is that you are ready. You're alert, you're awake, you've got energy about you. And so you need to harbor a little bit of that just to kind of get out of the blocks, in a good style. One of the things I wanted to go back to your comment earlier about, speaking being a one-on-one situation. One of the things I think people that do not do enough of it, they don't practice enough, they get into this thing that you just talked about where there's this fear element going on. And they walk in with the assumption that they have to know everything and they have to do all the talking. Whereas if you can make any interaction conversational in nature and drive or maneuver the conversation to where you need it to go by simply asking good questions. It's amazing how much pressure you'll take off yourself. And the other person you're talking to, depending on who they are, most people like to talk. You ask them some really good questions that brings up things they're either experts at or they have experience in, or they know something about. Sometimes you have the other problem of just shutting them up. But most of the time you can alleviate that stress of what am I going to say and how long do I have to talk by inviting other people into the conversation.
And as you'll note, before we began, I said, if you had a bottle of water with you, you won't cough. If you don't have, you won't cough.
I know, I see you over there.
I guess just goes to show how much I know.
Yeah.
But I have a story I want to share with you. Going back to Johnny Carson.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I thought this is what you were going to say when you were telling the story about your friend who went blank, for whether it was it may have been a couple seconds, but he thought it was a couple minutes. Johnny Carson is doing this skit where he's reading from a book and he doesn't think it's going well. He's not getting the reaction he expected. There's a little laughter, there's not a lot of laughter. This is not going well. And he looks over at Ed McMahon and he says something like, we can't take this stuff on the road. We got to try it out live. And he keeps on going and he's not getting it. And he looks at Doc Severinsen and he says, you guys are always complaining that I never give you time to perform, play something. He picks up his trumpet and he blows taps.
Oh, wow.
All right. Everybody crack. Carson looks at him, slams the binder like he's angry, goes back, sits down at the desk, and he said, that was probably the worst one we ever did. And the audience says, no, it was good. And he said, you liked that? And the audience said, yeah, we liked it. It was good.
How funny.
You can't always tell. Sometimes you think you're bombing and you're not.
Right. Yeah. But what I like about that story is he was very comfortable shifting gears and resetting to check in and figure out whether he was right or people did like what he was saying. That to me is the mark of someone who has that real congruency. They're feeling it inside. They know what's going on, but they've got the ability to project it and interact with the crowd on the outside, and people are drawn by that. People like that kind of stuff.
And self-deprecating and being able to change course. He once said, and then I realized a lot of comedians say this, and it's true because it happened to me. There is no lonelier place than standing on a stage in front of a group of people, tens or hundreds, doesn't matter, and you tell a joke and nothing. It is the loneliest place in the world. Now,
Right.
because I had watched what had happened to me when I watched him doing it, I looked at him and I said, for what you're paying, that was funny, and at least you could laugh, and then people giggled. All right, so it just got over it, went on.
Right.
And one time I told a joke, didn't work. And then I said, okay, I'm going on to the next. And somebody sort of faked laughing, go, no, I don't want your charity. But what I do want right now, Steve, is to share your contact information.
Okay.
And to ask you one final question. Is there anything that I did not ask which you wish I had asked? And if I had asked, what would you have said?
Well, one question that might have been helpful would have been for people who are in this situation where they've been told, just fake it till you make it. That's kind of a common entrepreneurial phrase, and it's not working for them. What do you do? And to that, I would say, go back and find two people in your inner circle, people that are close to you. They don't have to be working with you. They could just be colleagues from other areas. but people that you know will shoot you straight. And sit down with them and say, how do you think I come off? What do you think I could do to improve my ability to build professional relationships? Be really specific and get really clear and deep about what you're asking. And if you pick the right two people, they won't disappoint you. And whatever you get back, you don't argue, you don't debate it, you don't give justification, you just take notes and say thank you. And if you go that route because you really feel like you're having difficulty becoming the real you, that will change it.
That also works when you're dealing with your supervisor. Supervisor gives you feedback. You don't give a response right there and there on the spot. You say thank you, think about it, and you get back to them the next day.
Right. Yes.
Because they appreciate the fact that you at least appear to have given some consideration to what they said.
Yes, absolutely.
Instead, the person says thank you and goes out for lunch. Steve, thank you so much. This has been very informative. And on behalf of our viewers, I want to thank you.
And Bruce, thank you for having me. It's been a great chat. I love your style.
Thank you.
And I hope other people that come here give you the same kind of quality interview.
I appreciate that. Thank you again. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.